everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Thursday morning, and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric, here with AJ in Austin, Texas. This is episode number 201 for Thursday, January 11th, 2018. How's it going, AJ? Welcome back.
Man, it's nice to be back. Sorry to everybody that I was not on the episode last week. I was too tired. Kind of like we were talking about, would have been a burden to the listeners and the community if I had been on the show, because I just mentally couldn't hack it. I was too tired.
Yeah, got to bring your A game. We've got a good show today. We're going to talk a little bit about Korean Airlines, booking flights specifically on Korean using the Korean Skypass program. This is one of those programs that can really shine in terms of value. There are a few landmines along the way in terms of redemption. It can be a little bit tricky, which for those of you listening here, we're going to sort that all out. And it's good news in the long run because there's a lot of really good availability with the Korean program because it's a little more confusing. For some
and there's
folks.
a couple of nice perks about the way the program works. You can do some things that other programs don't normally let you do.
Yeah. So for news and updates today, we're going to talk about a few new routes that have been introduced, which specifically a couple which may come in handy for carnival celebrations coming up this year in South America. We've also got a breakdown of a new status challenge opportunity with Starwood Preferred Guests, a pretty interesting Fifth Freedom route to West Africa at a very good price for business class.
Great price, yeah.
And a significant update for the Southwest Companion Pass. Let's start out with Carnival, though, coming up pretty soon here.
Yeah, this February, the 9th through the 13th or 14th, depending on how you're looking at it. That Ash Wednesday would be the 14th, I believe.
Yep. So in the past, we actually did I believe a live episode with some of our friends
in Rio.
From Rio.
That would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Three years ago, maybe?
Back, yeah. So I guess one disclaimer here: if you're thinking about Carnival and you haven't spent any time in Brazil, it could be a little bit overwhelming for some folks. Carnival's a pretty big party. There's a lot of crowds. A ton of people from Europe and from the U.S. come, and every Brazilian gets out and, they've got like a big vacation.
Yeah, I think my disclaimer, if somebody asked me, it would be if crowds bother you and if a lot of noise bothers you, probably best to do something else. However, if crowds and noise do not bother you, it's a unique experience.
Yeah.
It really is. It's an exceptional time.
Yeah. So as far as the Carnival celebration, one other thing that we were talking about before we started recording is that it doesn't hurt you to get there a little bit early. There's a lot of fun celebrations and stuff that goes on basically from the beginning of January onwards through the actual official week of Carnival. Typically, it goes Thursday through Tuesday. So you've got a couple days at the end of the week. You got the weekend, which everybody goes pretty hard, and then Monday, Tuesday, and then Ash Wednesday is just decompress and wind down.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of Brazilians that would tell you the new year begins after Carnival. I think I've heard that before. Like, the year begins after Carnival, which is about right for, like what you said, the preliminary parties. And even there's some post-Carnival action going on as well that's a little bit more chill.
Yeah,
accordingly. Makes sense, but man, it's great.
Award availability actually looks pretty good for the beginning of February to travel down to Brazil. But there's 2 new routes that I thought were interesting and have good availability through the beginning of February. So the first one is Avianca Brazil, which is a Star Alliance carrier based in Sao Paulo. They've got a route from Sao Paulo Guarulhos Airport to New York City JFK. It's a daily flight. Great availability, especially in business class. And Sao Paulo is a massive hub for Brazil. There's a ton of Avianca flights that connect to the main places where you want to celebrate Carnival, which are Salvador and Rio. And the other route is Dallas-Fort Worth to Rio. This is an American Airlines route. It's a 3X weekly one. But there's a lot of good connecting award availability to Dallas. It's also a place where you're much less likely to have winter storms mess up your travel plans.
For
New York, if you've been paying attention to the news, had a horrible time
hammered with weather,
with flight cancellations. So those could be some interesting options too, especially if you live in the northern part of the U.S. and you want to warm up a little bit. Carnival can be the ticket. The last one is that AA also threw in a new route from Miami to Cartagena, Colombia.
Yeah.
And Cartagena is only like a 2-hour bus ride from Barranquilla.
Which is supposedly like the Mac Daddy of Carnival in Colombia.
Yes.
And from preliminary research, the second biggest carnival celebration in the world behind Rio. And that's sandwiched with Salvador, Brazil, which is a massive, massive celebration as well. So
I can't believe that Barranquilla is bigger than Salvador. And if that's true, or even if it's close, that's amazing.
I don't think Barranquilla is a bigger city than Salvador. So if they have a bigger carnival, that's pretty impressive because Salvador really goes all in on Carnival.
Yes, they do. So I guess the ones that we know about, AJ and I have spent time both in Rio and in Salvador for Carnival. They're very different carnivals, but both are extremely fun. Highly recommended. If you are going to travel to Salvador, there are no direct flights from the U.S. So Salvador, unfortunately, canceled the Miami flight a couple years ago. So you're going to need to connect either in Sao Paulo or in Rio. To get to Salvador, it's about a 3-hour, 2.5-hour flight from both of those cities. Yeah. So it's a pretty easy connection there, and definitely well worth the trip. So pick one of those two, and you really can't go wrong. But now's the time to get moving with your visa. I would not count on that e-visa thing going live. Brazilians are a little bit notorious.
Can't count on it.
And not to mention, who knows if Donald Trump just says something that makes them be like, screw you guys, we're not doing this anymore. Another couple things just to mention from that post, which I'll put in the show notes about new routes. There's also a Asia route that looks pretty interesting from Washington Dulles to Hong Kong. Right now, Cathay Pacific flies on 5 or 6 different direct flights to the U.S. And Hong Kong is such an awesome hub because of its location. It's great for connecting up to East Asia, Korea, and Japan. It's great for connecting to Southeast Asia.
And it's a massive city, massive airport. So, I mean, there's a lot of demand for travel to and from Hong Kong. So.
Yeah. So that's just one extra East Coast city that is a place to look for business and first class availability on one of the elite airlines in Asia. So I'm happy to see that route. I think it's a 4X weekly. That one is not live yet. So the other 3 that we talked about for South America are already up and running as of December. The Hong Kong to Washington, D.C. route starts this September 2018, September 15th, I believe. But it's already on sale. It's already bookable on the British Airways website. So if you've got travel coming up next winter to Asia, that's a new option.
I mean, speaking of premium cabin travel, this is not Cathay Pacific. However, thanks to Frequent Miler, there's an interesting opportunity we found from the East Coast from D.C. to Senegal. 50,000 points for a round trip in business class, 25K one way. And this is on using Virgin points on South African Airways, which you actually have some experience with. So this is kind of a niche thing, but if anyone's interested in getting from the East Coast of the United States to the west part of Africa, a pretty cool opportunity in business class. And just a quick tip based on the blog post, just hop on over to United, search for availability, and then you're going to go ahead and book this on the phone with Virgin. I know they had an issue with switching airports or something in their system, but you can still get this deal.
This is an interesting Fifth Freedom route. Like that's one that
South Africa flying from DC from the United States to Senegal.
Yeah, and so I would imagine also that this route continues either to Cape Town or Johannesburg, because most of the time those Fifth Freedom routes are just part of a connection onwards to the home country. So this is one to kind of explore a little bit further, but in terms of pricing, typically you're going to spend no less than 80,000 miles each way in business class. Spending 50,000, the taxes and fees are a little bit higher with Virgin Atlantic, but this is a pretty good opportunity. I'd be very curious to check out Senegal. Like, my experience in South Africa, those are 2 very different places, but this seems like a route that would be fun to try. And I would say also that Virgin Atlantic has a great call center. So, ideally you want to be able to book these online, but this is a flight that I'd be very keen to try.
Yeah, man. So that was 50,000 for a round trip in business class. Speaking of 50,000, we've got some good news about Southwest Airlines. So there's a new 50,000 mile Southwest Premier link that is alive. Once again, thanks to Frequent Miler. Somebody dug this up from Reddit. So this is really good news, and this has huge implications for the Companion Pass.
Yes.
So, man, you want to give people, I don't know, a refresher on the Companion Pass, and also, man, timing. Very,
Yes.
very good timing.
So the Companion Pass is awarded to those that can acquire 110,000 Southwest points in a single calendar year. And so the reason that this 50,000 offer is so exciting right now is that currently the business card from Chase is offering 60,000 points. So for those of you working on your element math, 50 plus 60 gives you that full 110,000 without any additional spending on the card and any additional flying with Southwest. So that's the first thing. You can sign up for these two cards and get the Companion Pass as soon as you hit the bonuses. Second thing is that you get the Companion Pass for the rest of the year in which you reach that 110,000 point threshold and the following year. So anybody that got it at the end of December only gets it for 2018, but anybody that gets it now is going to get it for all of 2018 and all of 2019. Now, the benefit. Companion Pass means buy one, get one free on award tickets and paid airfare on Southwest. So you and your spouse, you and your best friend, you and whoever you travel with the most have access to redeem. First of all, that 110,000 points goes twice as far with two people.
Yeah, you can almost think of it as if you have somebody that you travel with and you're going to intend to travel with, you almost instantaneously double the amount of miles you have, and then you get buy one, get one airfare for the duration of the benefit.
Yeah. Last time I looked this up, the value of that 110,000 points, it should get you roughly $3,400 in domestic travel between the two people if you max out, if you always fly with your companion. The only real restriction here on the Companion Pass, I guess there's one on the travel part and there's one on the earning the points part. So with the travel, you have to pick one companion. You can change it a couple of times. I think the limit is 3 changes throughout the entire year and a half or 2 years that you have it. So you more or less have to stick with a couple of different companions. And as far as earning it, both of these cards are subject to the Chase 524 rule, which means that you can only get this combo of 2 cards if you have 3 cards open in the last 2 years. Business cards from banks that are not Chase don't count. But before, the best offer on the personal card was 40,000, which kind of left people at 100,000, where you have to put some additional spend to actually get there. Maybe you don't get there till March or April. If you sign up for these 2 cards, you can get that pretty quickly and have a really nice run of, probably 19, 20, 21 months, something like that.
And it's funny too,
free.
Having the Companion Pass actually makes using Chase points to Southwest a reasonable proposition at times when it's normally not the most attractive transfer partner. But when you get that multiplier effect or whatever, and just, it depends a lot on your travel, but domestic travel, the Caribbean, Mexico, all places that Southwest flies. So bunch of value to be had traveling around the U.S. and the neighboring regions.
Yeah.
And speaking of Southwest, they're in the news for not good reasons. So they just settled a $15 million lawsuit that had to do with some price fixing. So long story short is, according to the plaintiffs, back in 2009, Southwest, along with Delta, American, and United, were doing some price fixing, essentially doing a bunch of availability, open seat voodoo
What is
stuff.
that word that they use?
It was something discipline. So the terminology was talking about capacity discipline, which was kind of way just to jack up the prices for flights. And so essentially Southwest, they're saying we didn't do anything wrong, but it's just it's more pragmatic for us to pay $15 million and not spend all the money on class action litigation and all that stuff. But,
well, the interesting thing about this, though, is that this leaves American, Delta, and United
they're going to fight it,
fighting the class action lawsuit, and Southwest is essentially saying, all right, we'll pay up and we'll provide a full account of the facts. So essentially they're kind of becoming state's witness for the plaintiffs here and just going to turn over some information. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully the outcome of this is that it makes these airlines less likely to do this capacity discipline.
Yeah, as it is, those airlines control an incredible amount of the market. Their market share is huge. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know versus 10, 15 years ago, they own a lot more of the market now. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Southwest says, here's $15 million, but we did nothing wrong. We're just being pragmatic. Changing gears, SPG. We've got an interesting status challenge going on here. But before I get into this and before I get excited, there is some serious fine print around this. So SPG will occasionally do status challenges where long story short, you stay a certain amount of nights at SPG property within a certain amount of time, and you'll get either gold or platinum status. And so what we've got here with this status challenge is you've got to register for it, and then they've broken it down into 3-month chunks. So you've got to do this within 3 months. The first one has already started. It went from January 1st, and I'll go through the end of the March, and then all the way for the next 6 months after that. So as far as this goes, how it works is if you stay 9 nights within that 3-month period, you'll qualify for gold. And if you stay 18 nights at an SPG property with qualifying purchases, you will get platinum status. Some things to note is you are not eligible for this if you've previously done an SPG status challenge. And you are also not eligible for this if you've had status since 2013, whether it's gold or platinum.
All right. So link in the show notes to the details on this. I think to me, the big takeaway is don't status challenge for gold, because you can get that by signing up for the platinum card.
Which is going to be way cheaper than potentially going out of your way to stay 9 nights in SPG property.
The platinum card's annual fee is $550 for the personal card, $450 for the business. Either one gets you SPG gold. And if you take the personal card as the example, $200 airline credit, I'm going to use that. So take that off the annual fee. $200 Uber credit, I'm going to use that. Not everybody will, but that's another one. Especially Uber Eats, you don't even have to actually take an Uber. So at that point, you've really reduced that cost. And so I don't think this makes any sense to do for SPG Gold, but it does potentially make some sense for Platinum. And the other big thing is that because of this merger that's going to happen with Marriott, you're linking these accounts. So it's also Marriott Platinum status if you do this challenge. So yeah, link in the show notes, abroaders.com/201 with details on that. We actually got a listener question that is sort of related to this about the SPG and Marriott cards current offer. So I'm going to read through this question and let's try and answer this before we get into the next news and update stuff. Okay, so the question here, what are your thoughts about the current Marriott offer versus the Starwood Preferred offer? My primary goal is obtaining transferable points for international flights. Now, before deciding between these two, he's basically taking a look and saying, okay, the Starwood card's got an offer for 25,000 points. The Marriott card's got 80,000 points, but with an opportunity to get some additional points by adding an authorized user. They're pretty similar offers. And I guess the one piece of important context here is that if you link your two accounts, you can transfer 3 Marriott points into one SPG point.
Right.
So AJ, what's your take on this? 2 different card offers. Maybe you're going to get one.
I think it's a philosophical debate. So the first thing is the Marriott card is subject to 524. Okay. So if you're at 4 and your heart is set on racking up some hotel points or SPG points, then you could do the Marriott card first and then get the SPG after. However, if you're well under 524, I think there's 2 different ways you want to look at this. The first thing is if you're really keen on SPG points, get the SPG card. And after a couple months of spend, you're already have more SPG points than you got from doing the Marriott Curly Shuffle, getting the authorized user, and then getting your 90,000 Marriott points, turning them into 30,000. Where if you just get the SPG card, after a couple of months, you'll be just where you were transferring the Marriott, and you'll also be earning more transferable points for international flights like you once with every dollar spent. Where with Marriott, you're going to earn $1 on every dollar spent. So the SPG card is, I think, the straightforward answer. However, if you have an appetite for risks, I think that you might go with the Marriott card, add the user, do that whole curly shuffle, get your 30,000 SPG points, and then hang out and see if SPG climbs back to 35K. That would be the more risky move, or we don't know if that's going to happen. That's super speculative, but I guess the long story short is don't discount how many points you're going to earn with the SPG card, just putting your regular spending on that, versus a Marriott card, which does you really no good for earning from spending. Yeah, so that's definitely a good key takeaway. The other one is if you're over 524, the Marriott card's off the table. So for those of you that have 5 cards open in the last 2 years,
SPG card, this is a great time. Like, it does occasionally go up to 30 or 35,000 points, but we don't even know how long this card from Amex is going to exist, because the SPG program is presumably going to be rolled into the Marriott program. And there's probably going to be an ongoing battle for who gets those card portfolios. The last update we had is that through the end of 2018, the SPG program is going to stay independent from Marriott, and we're going to continue to have that ability to transfer 3 Marriott points into 1 SPG and vice versa. So I think the bottom line here is your mileage may vary. Both of them are good offers. And so, you might consider picking up both cards if you got the ability to get the Marriott. Just be aware you should do the Marriott first if you're at 424, because the SPG personal card will count against you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess to answer the question is consider 524 where you stand. Getting both cards is not a horrible option. We don't know how long the SPG card is going to be around, so there's some uncertainty there. And the final thing to remember is you're going to get much more value out of your spend on the SPG card than the Marriott card.
Yeah. All right. Good. That was concise. I like that. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys too. So we got a couple of reminders before we get into the last our other listener question and get into the core content. For the most part, I want to just refer folks that have one of the City Hilton cards to check out one of the links in the show notes. There's sort of 2 different things that are going to be happening in January. This is going to be the last show before you need to take action. So if you've got the City Hilton card, Amex has basically taken over the exclusive rights to issue Hilton cards. And so the City card is going to convert into an Amex product automatically, which means Amex is just going to mail you a card and start charging you the annual fee. And there's some implications both for your 524 status that are a little bit unclear. And so I think the main takeaway is if you have one of the City cards, most people should probably cancel that card before the conversion happens, which I believe is at the end of the month.
Yeah. So the 2 big things there would be you're protecting yourself from uncertainty on racking up another on 524, and you're also maintaining eligibility if that card ends up being something you want.
Yeah, you can sign up for it and get 80,000 points or something to that tune. So anyways, check out the post, because the blog post has got some great detail that would just probably make your mind numb if we tried to talk you through on the show. But good information, and definitely still time to take action. So probably worth a look if you got one of those cards.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the core content, let's do that the second listener question, and then we can go from there. So we've got Derek, who asked us a question about AA miles. So long story short, Derek's looking at going from Chicago to London. He's been back and forth between British Airways' website looking for availability, AA.com, and he's a little bit confused about the taxes and fees he's seeing, where he's seeing them all the way up to $550 for economy class, and then as low as $170. And so I think the moral of the story here, and he added a couple things, just saying this is his first time using miles internationally, so a little bit of a newbie. But this is a good question and a good point, which brings us back to how fuel surcharges actually work. Where in this instance, I think he may have gotten crossed up where it's not about the miles, it's about the plane.
Yeah,
which plane, who's operating the flight. And so that's why, Derek, that's why you're seeing those $550 for a ticket. I'd imagine that's the British Airways flights, and the 170 would be American Airlines. And without Air Berlin, I'm trying to think who else One World in Europe would potentially operate flights between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It was Chicago, right?
Chicago to London.
Chicago to London. So probably what Derek ran into is when he searched BA, they're obviously prioritizing their own flights because it's cheaper for them to book you on one of their flights, and they love collecting that $600 in taxes and fuel surcharges. And American Airlines probably has the ability to book that exact same ticket. So he could use his American miles to book that $550 ticket. But if he can find a flight from Chicago to London that's operated by American, he's going to pay much lower taxes and fees, probably under $200 for a round trip. Could be as low as $75 $75 or $50 for a one-way. So that's really the way to go. You want to look for flights that are operated by American over the ocean. And that actually applies to things that connect to other destinations in Europe, where it's not going to cause a huge increase in the taxes and fees that you pay out of pocket if you're connecting on British Airways from, say, London to Berlin, or from London to Paris, or name your destination in Europe. That's not going to kill you. That's maybe going to add $20 or $30 onto the fees. But the overseas segment can be $400 or $500 more expensive with British Airways. The second part of his question, which I think is worth mentioning, he kind of said, I've got some points with Chase, but I'm saving those for a round the world trip on Singapore.
About 300,000.
Which is well worthwhile. Definitely a good idea to save those if you can. And so since you've only got about 10,000 American miles, you need to pick up some extra ones. And he's already got the Citi American Airlines card, which is a really good deal right now. But the other one that he doesn't have is the Barclay Aviator Red card, which is 60,000 points or American miles after the first purchase. And you pay the $95 annual fee. So in this scenario, if you do this right, you pick up that Barclay Aviator card, you buy a pack of gum, box of Tic Tacs,
anything,
pay your $95 annual fee, get 60,000 miles. Those should post within 30 to 40 days from the time you make that first purchase, depending on how the statement cycle works out. And within a month or so, you've got a round trip ticket to London from Chicago for roughly $300 if you include the annual fee and all the taxes.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it should be less, but yeah. So definitely a good deal there, and it's a good strong offer. And Derek, I encourage you to hold on to those Chase points if at all possible. I guess it depends on other travel you have, but Singapore around the world stuff sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a good deal. All right, so I think that wraps it up for news and updates and listener questions. Let's talk a little bit about Korean Airlines here. So I guess I'll start with kind of a high level of why you should consider Korean. This is another good reason to hang on to those Chase points. They are flexible. They can transfer to 13 different airline and hotel partners. And one of those partner programs is Korean Air's Skypass program. Now, Korean's part of the Sky Team Alliance, so they're partners with Delta, and that's the major U.S. airline. But Korean is kind of a unique program because they put some extra hoops to jump through in your way to actually redeem tickets. And so for whatever reason, it seems that, there's a lot of people that don't utilize this program. And they also are kind of like, Singapore and Lufthansa, where they offer much better availability on their own flights to their own members. So if you've got Chase points and you can convert those instantly into Skypass miles, you can access a really high quality business and first class product from the US to Asia. So Korean's got, I would say, like five to seven different destinations in the US. I know they fly to LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and Atlanta. And so there's quite a few different options. And every time I've looked at these for people traveling to Asia, the award availability has been close to wide open in business and first class. So that's the main reason. We've only booked like 6 or 7 of these tickets ever. But if you got these points, we're starting to look there more and more often because of how good the availability is. And number one, I guess the other thing I would say is pricing wise, these are pretty comparable tickets in business and first class to what you would pay with any other major carrier going over the Pacific Ocean. Yeah,
well, let's talk about United, because you've got these Chase points, transfer to United or transfer to Korean, and you're going to probably have a way better product with Korean, especially in business class, and the pricing should be ballpark.
Well, funny you mentioned that. Our good friend Idausa from Mimic Method actually hit me up just like last week and said, hey, I was looking at traveling to Bangkok. He's actually going to a place way cooler than Bangkok, an island out in the middle of the ocean. Oh, nice. So he's connecting over there. But he was looking at United tickets, and I think it was going to be like 70,000 miles to fly United. And he was kind of looking at the... what's the name of their business class product?
Polaris.
They're not rolling out fast enough. Yes, Polaris. So he was looking at Polaris and, was basically going to pay 70 or 80,000 miles to connect and 1 or 2 stops to Bangkok on United Polaris. And we took a look at transferring to Korean instead. And he's now going to pay 95,000 miles for first class all the way to Bangkok.
which is
one stop.
That's massive.
Yeah, so that's a huge upgrade. And he could have booked business class and paid the same number of miles, which would have been way nicer business class than the Polaris. But first class on Korean is pretty awesome. They've got a couple of different aircraft configurations. So they're one of the A380s actually got the biggest first class cabin that I've seen. It's got 12 seats.
Wow. What's common? 8?
8's pretty common.
4, 8, depending on the...
So yeah, I'd say like Cathay's got a few configurations that are in 4, that are in 6, and a few that are in 8. So what I would recommend if you're flying Korean is the 747-8 has a 6-seat configuration in first class that's 1-1. So it's 3 rows of 1 seat.
That's awesome.
On each side of the plane. So that's what we actually booked for this JFK to Seoul to Bangkok. We've also booked a couple of other flights. So we've booked Atlanta to Manila connecting in Korea. That one was like $50 in taxes and 75,000 points. The New York to Bangkok in first class came out to $67 and 95,000 points one way. And so the one other thing that's really worth mentioning here, I'm going to run through the rules and kind of some of the hoops you got to jump through with Korean. But the big thing to keep in mind is if you're booking a ticket that's exclusively operated by Korean Air, you're going to be able to book one way for half the price of round trip. For their SkyTeam Partner Awards, you have to book a round trip to be able to use Korean miles. So that's something to just keep in mind. But because of Seoul's location, you can pretty much connect anywhere in Southeast Asia using Korean. Generally you're going to pay roughly the same number of points for business and first class. Taxes should be significantly lower than a lot of the competitor programs that are out there. So let's talk about some of the hoops to jump through.
I'm not as familiar as you on this, but I'm pretty sure people may need a printer, a pen.
You might need some of those
the tools required.
Technology.
Yeah, as you say, it's 2018, and we're talking about booking flights with miles using a pen and paper at a point in the process.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that this is actually way simpler than it sounds, and this is probably why there's so much great availability, because lots of people don't do this. So the process goes like this. First off, you need to create a Korean account. That takes about 5 minutes, super easy. Once you do that, you've got a Skypass number. That'll allow you to search online because I don't think you can use the award search tool. They won't show you everything that's available if you don't have an account. So create an account, then you can search and find the seats. Now, once you've found the seats, you want to give Korean a call and you can put those seats on hold. Korean's call center is super fast. I've never waited more than like 6 or 7 minutes to talk to somebody. And the nice thing about their holds is that you tend to be able to hold seats for like 2 to 3 weeks.
That's great.
And
unusual. Unusually great.
Yeah, I mean, the longest other one that I know of is American that's got 5 day
5
holds.
days, yeah.
So with Korean, it's multiple weeks. And so you can basically start with Korean, put something on hold. You don't need to transfer the points to hold the ticket.
Which is another really nice.
So you save them, keep them in Chase, then look at all the other options, see if there's something that's better. And at the end of the day, you've still got that hold so that you can transfer and book something through Korean. So if you decide that you actually want to go through and ticket the reservation, now that you've got that hold, you're going to want to print out the redemption form. You need to fill this PDF out online. You can actually type in all the answers to the PDF. It just basically asks you for the confirmation number they gave you on the phone, your account number, who's traveling, all that stuff that should be available electronically. You're going to print that form and put your signature on it. Now, you may be able to just take a picture of your signature and depending on how good you are with Photoshop, you can probably work that out, but a printer helps for this scenario. But once you've got a scanned copy of that signed form, you send it to them by email along with a picture of your photo page from your passport, and they will email you back saying, we've got it, go ahead and transfer those miles over. And so they will issue the ticket, and then they'll either call you or you can call them back to pay the taxes and fees. But so overall, the process can be a little bit cumbersome, but the key things here is that you can find the seats, call them and put them on hold, get that record locator that's holding your reservation, do any other research, check out other options. You got a few weeks to figure things out. And then when you're ready to go, you transfer your Chase points over to Korean and then email them the redemption form. And
that's not that bad. I mean, printing things out just seems ridiculous, but when you think about it, You create your account, find something good, you put it on hold. You got a long ass hold. You don't even need the miles, and then you get to the form action, and then finalize with transferring the points and paying whatever taxes and fees, which in this case was like 60 some bucks.
Yeah. I mean, the taxes and fees, I guess some of your other options, United has reasonable taxes and fees, but not nearly as good of a business class or first class. But overall, just the value for Korean is super high. It's a product that I really want to try out personally.
Didn't this particular flight retail around $9,000?
Yes. Yeah. It was $9,700 for this particular set of first class flights. The other, I guess, one last gotcha, which doesn't actually matter, but better to avoid surprises, is that the points transfer instantly from Chase Ultimate Rewards, but you can only make one transfer per 24-hour period. So what happened with Idausa is like a lot of people have some of their points with Chase are attached to their personal card and some are attached to their business card. We've got some on our Sapphire Reserve and some on the Ink business card. And so if you don't combine the points first within Chase, then you're going to have to wait another day. And it's kind of a pain because you got to make two different transfers because Korean apparently only accepts one transfer every 24 hours.
But yeah.
One last thing. So we've talked about this from the context of just booking a ticket for yourself, but because of all this awesome availability, you're probably going to want to bring your good friend. AJ, next time I get to try this product, I'll bring you along. But there's something very important that you need to know, especially if you're bringing somebody that is not a family member. But I would follow this advice even if you are bringing a family member, because how many forms do you really want to print out and sign? So Korean is one of the programs that's a little bit more restrictive about using your points to book tickets for other people. Now, the nice thing about Chase is that if you're traveling with your spouse, for example, Chase will let you transfer points to your spouse or partner, so you don't have to actually be married. You can just be life partners. You can transfer to their frequent flyer account. And so if you're going to book a ticket with somebody else using Korean's program, I highly recommend that you transfer. So I would transfer my Chase points to my account, my Korean account to book my ticket. And if I were traveling with you,
I would create my Korean account, transfer points
and you
to
would
my
book
Chase, and then
from your Korean account. Now, if it's your spouse, there is a way to book for family members, but you have to verify the family relationship. So you may need a marriage certificate. I've never been through that process, actually. Fortunately, in most cases, we've been able to transfer points to each person's individual Korean account. And I guess the final thing to be aware of is before you get into that mess of verifying family members, it might be a better idea to just add the person that you want to book for as an authorized user on one of your Chase accounts first. It's free if you have the Sapphire Preferred card. I can just add that person as an authorized user. Then they're eligible to receive points into their Korean account. So that's kind of the last landmine to avoid stepping on. That can be a huge pain if you get the points transferred. The good news is the 2-week plus hold time gives you time to sort out getting those documents together. But if you can avoid having to send over marriage certificates or whatever they require, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm still surprised by that hold time because it's not often in the points and miles game that you see somebody be so different in a way that's advantageous for the user, you know?
Yeah.
So that's surprising.
Well, all good things eventually come to an end. So now that we've talked about it, it'll probably be a matter of months before this disappears.
A la the U.S. Mint.
All right. Anything else that you got for today's show?
Man, that's that. Nice to be back. Happy 2018 to everybody. Look forward to catching you next Thursday, which will be the 18th.
All right. Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.